Hey, MacDowin here. Today we are taking a look at R.I.O.T Commando, part of the retro Eagle Force line from Zica Toys. I got this figure directly from Zica Toys for about 20 bucks, and I've been anxiously awaiting this figure for a very long time, and the time is now. As you can see, the figure comes bagged and is not on a card, and if I understand it correctly, they are testing the waters before creating cards or a series of figures. You know, I kind of like being able to buy like one or two figures at a time instead of having to drop $300 or $400 for an entire set of figures. It's just, I don't know, it gives me a chance to look at the figure, try it out, see if I actually really like it. But maybe Zica is in a better position to do that than some of the others. Anyway, let's get this figure open. I'm just gonna rip it open here, pull this thing apart. It's pretty tough apparently, so I'm gonna get a knife that I wasn't planning on getting and get this figure out of the bag. There we go. Alright, so it looks like he only comes with this one accessory, this gun. And so then, well, here's the figure. It's not like a G.I. Joe where there's a file card. The loose seems, or the head seems, the head seems really loose. Oh, it has a very interesting joint there. Anyway, this figure uses the O-ring construction similar to G.I. Joe figures from the 1980s and the 1990s. So we'll compare real quick a vintage G.I. Joe figure with this figure. So as you can see, this figure is just a little bit taller. The body overall is just a little bit bigger. So he may or may not blend in really well. Probably pretty close. I mean, maybe this is just a tall guy. Cobra Commander here is like a 5'8" guy, and this Riot Trooper is like a 6' guy. I don't know. So anyway, let's grab a modern G.I. Joe figure, and we'll scoot them over here and do a little size comparison. Yep, I decide we'll grab the same character. There we go. So as you can see, he's actually not real far off from this. He's a little bit in between. So if this is a 3 3/4 and this is a 4-inch, maybe it's like 3 7/8. And we're getting into an area I don't want to deal with. Anyway, so that's about what he looks like compared to a vintage and modern style figure. So we'll set these off to the side. I'll pull it apart so you can actually indeed see this O-ring. Kind of. It's kind of dark in there. Trust me, there is an O-ring in there. So what the O-ring does is allows for motion and movement all over the place. That's why so many people like the O-ring design, is you can position the torso any which way you want to. And yeah, compared to some of these others, I mean, there's other ways you can do it, but at the time the O-ring seemed to be really revolutionary and just a really great design. It's got all the same. It's got the shoulder joints up and down, rotating, has a bend at the elbow and a rotation at the bicep. This figure has a bit of an update to the O-ring design where it looks like the wrists rotate. So the wrists rotate, that's kind of neat. So if you want to do the splits, he can go up about that far because of the waist hindrance. His legs go back about that far. He's got a bend at the knee, and I like how these kneecaps, or these knee pads, hide the joint compared to a lot of the G.I. Joe figures. There is nothing more down here, nothing at the ankle or the boot. There's nothing at the thigh. Like I mentioned, though, this is a really loose head, and I'm noticing something with it. There is a screw in there, but I'm noticing that it looks like a ball joint is up in the head. So there's some sort of a joint here at the neck, like the neck is attached to the torso, and there's, I wish I had a screwdriver with me. I'd just be tempted to take this guy apart real quick just to look at his construction. But it makes me wonder if the head could be popped off. I'm not going to try it. I'd really rather not break my brand new figure. but I may investigate and decide or figure that out. He's got a really nice gray outfit with some black vests and boots and some red highlights to signify the R.I.O.T commander. I really like the look of his eyes. In my lights, they shimmer. I don't know if you can see that little bit of a shimmer or a reflection there, but the red in the goggles are really cool. I think the figure is really cool, and overall, I'm really glad to finally get this figure. It brings back lots of thoughts, lots of memories of getting and opening an original G.I. Joe action figure from the 80s and 90s. I think it's a great looking figure and looks really similar, just looks almost like a vintage figure with a couple small updates. I think you could stand them with the vintage G.I. Joe figures if you... I don't know if there'll be any more of these or if this is it, but you probably could stand them there as just a taller trooper. And there may be some other figures that it might to scale with, maybe like a Destro. Some of them, there is a few little bit taller figures, so you might be able to scale it if you wanted to display them together. You know what I haven't done yet? I haven't put the gun in his hand. Let's see. So he seemed to hold the gun well until I flicked it out. So we can get that there. We can get his other hand around that. So yeah. So there. He can hold the gun really well. You can get him into a bit of a pose. I don't know if you'll be able to keep him this way or not. He feels like a solid figure. It doesn't feel cheap. Back in the day, I only bought G.I. Joe figures because all the other O-rings felt cheap. Well, he was going to stand. Or he was going to pose until I bumped him. I don't know what I was doing now. There we go. But I think you can get him to pose just right. On the bottom of his feet, I forgot to mention, it's really difficult to see. There are holes right here in between. I don't have a figure stand to try that out, but he does have holes. You can put him on a figure stand. That would be really interesting to know if he can fit on like G.I. Joe stands or if you need to get a different size. He is a little bit wiggly. The head is just probably the most wiggly and loose, and that may be my figure or maybe all of them. I don't know. Maybe the design, the ball joint that seems to be up in the head. So these are not going to be compatible in that regard with G.I. Joe figures. You can't swap them out. The arms they look to be about the same length, so you might be able to do some part swapping that way. And the legs are just a little bit longer, so you might be able to get some of these and repaint the legs and put them on some old G.I. Joe figures, maybe. I haven't really talked too much about the construction, except for, yes, it is O-ring, but there's also a metal crossbar, if you can see that. Let's see if I can bump my lighting up here just a little bit. There we go. There is a metal crossbar in there. It looks to be metal screws. These are dark. I think they are to blend in with the figure. And the joints, like the pins up here in the shoulders, I think are going to be plastic. I don't think those are metal. So it's a mixture of metal and plastic pins through this figure. And I think this figure is really cool. I might order a couple more. I like the $20 price tag only because it's a little bit cheaper than some figures out there that are around like $30 or $35 for this size of figure. And I mean, 20 still is a little bit much when you consider a 6-inch figure out there. And you can buy Fortnite figures for $10. You can buy retro G.I. Joe for about 12 or 13. So $20 for an O-ring figure. This is more just for coolness. This is an adult collectible. This is not a toy. You get this and it's meant to be displayed, not handled. And who knows, after a lot of playing, this might get super loose like an old figure, or it might break. It's not really meant, I don't believe, to be handled and fiddled with as much as probably I'm doing here. but I can't help it. It's a cool figure, and I want to move it around. I really like the proportions. I think it's very nice. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this sucker up. So yeah, if you like these O-ring style figures, I think you'll really like this one. If you really, really like those O-ring G.I. Joe figures, I think this is a great bet. There's another group out there doing some O-ring figures, and I still need to look into that and investigate, and I might talk about that at some point in a future video. In fact, I think they might be doing a Kickstarter at the moment, so I need to look into that. All right, now it's your turn. What do you think about this figure? What are your thoughts? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. And please like this video and share it everywhere. It really helps the channel. And if you enjoyed this information, then please consider subscribing for more future videos with more information. And his gun fell off. Anyway, thank you for stopping by and watching. I will see you in the next video. R.I.O.T.